Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh bidvaro. The Ten Commandments are repeated in the Torah, in the book of Exodus, in Shemot, and in the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim. In Shemot, in Exodus, it says, remember to keep the Sabbath as a holy day. Why should you keep the Sabbath as a holy day? Well, there are two basic reasons. One is because God took us out of Egypt. In Egypt, we could not rest one day a week. We weren't free to do so. But once we left Egypt, we could really observe this day of rest, this weekly day of rest. And because God created the world in 6 days, and after 6 days of arduous work, whatever work for the Almighty means, it was just a manifestation of His will. On the 7th day, He didn't work. What does it mean He didn't work? He ceased from creating things. So therefore, we are commanded to remember this Sabbath day. And as I said in the book of Deuteronomy, it says, keep the Sabbath day. How do you remember the Sabbath day? Our rabbis say, by taking a cup of wine and reciting, God created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day He rested. And therefore He commanded us that we should also rest the 7th day and sanctify the 7th day to the Lord. What does it say in Deuteronomy? There it says, keep the Sabbath day, and our rabbis interpret that meaning cease from creating. Don't do anything new. Don't make a chair. Don't make a table. Don't use electricity whereby you can transform many things. Don't use fire, because fire, heat is used in order to transform one element that we find in nature into something else. So there are two things. One is remember it with words by saying something, and the other one is abstain from creating anything. My teacher, Rav Soloveitchik, identified these two expressions with masculine and feminine. He said, on the one hand, zachor, remember, means do something, that is the masculine, and the other one is cease from doing, that is the feminine aspect. Don't do any kind of creative work. He says also, that Abraham is the active patriarch, while Sarah is more passive. But yet we see that the matriarchs are very, very important. It's the second matriarch, Rebecca, that decides who is the son that is going to receive the blessing from the father. She realizes that Jacob is the one that should be the true heir of the teachings of the father, and so on. You see, for instance, Miriam, the sister of Moses and Aaron, she understands that if her parents are separated, they will no longer have any children because of the edicts of the Pharaoh. This will be the end of the Jewish people. Many a time, the women who are not so active understand the situation with greater depth. So on the one hand, you need action. On the other hand, you have to have a panoramic vision that maybe is given more to women than it is to men. In any event, I think that we have to live by both. Because even though they're two separate words, Zachor and Shamor, according to our tradition, God enunciated them, said them at the same time. Something that is impossible for a human being to do, but for God nothing is impossible. In a sense, we have to do both. We have to remember the Sabbath day by saying something, but we also have to abstain from work, abstain from doing anything new, and thereby remembering what God did. How many days was creation? Well, maybe it was really 7. 6 days of doing something and the 7th day of not doing something. So that when you cease from creating, maybe you're doing something important as well. Sometimes you have to look into yourself. You have done so many things. Take a step back and evaluate what you are doing. A human being is both the doing and also the not doing. We have activity while we are awake, but also we have a period of sleep where maybe our mind evaluates everything and gets rid of things that aren't so important for us. Try to be a whole human being where you know when to act and you also know when not to act.